What I want to convince all of you by the end of the evening is that things that seem impossible are often quite possible. That dreaming big is essential to achieving big results, and that often the biggest roadblock you'll face is convincing yourself that you can do something. All right, we're doing it this way. Something about impossible being possible, something about dreams, and oh, wow, it was a cheesy intro. There we go. Cool. So, a little bit about me, as was already said before. I'm a fifth-year mechanical engineering student here at Queen's. I'm graduating this year, and I did a year of internship, which is why it's 5 years, not because I failed any courses. The president of a fraternity, as it was mentioned, and also kind of an aspiring stand-up comedian, which was something I took on this year to diversify, I guess. I don't know. But the reason why I'm standing in front of you all today is because I built a roller coaster in my backyard when I was 16 years old. Yeah, a little, what? Oh, ooh. There's a little gif of it working. See, like that was after first year, so like I was so full of life, so happy. But every time I tell people this, or when this was built, I always get that big question of why. And then I get questions like that, or like that, or yeah, like that. And the answer is nothing, no, and it depends on the day. But the real reason I wanted to bring that up is because it all starts with dreaming big. So as cheesy as it was at the beginning, it's absolutely essential to dream big. For me, building roller coasters and being around roller coasters and engineering was always a passion and an obsession, if you will, since I was a little kid. Living close to Canada's Wonderland, I knew every ride height, I knew every ride name, I knew that park inside and out, and for me, it was fun. So the idea of building a roller coaster was always a dream I had since I was a kid. And I also took the idea of, be whatever you want to be a little too literally, just as this busted. Once I started building, I knew that I was going to make mistakes. It was inevitable. And as much as they tell you you're going to make mistakes, I made mistakes. And then I made more, and then I made more, and then I made more. And the only reason I succeeded in anything of that project, in any aspect of it, was because I made all these mistakes. Yeah. So the reason why I'm showing you this picture is because this is how the ride started. That was when I was 16 years old. I had taken Intro to Science, or whatever your grade 10 science is in high school, and used one handsaw and a manual drill to put this lovely, lovely cart together. And the reason why I'm showing you this is because everything you see in that picture was a mistake. Not one piece of that picture was left in the final ride. And that speaks volumes, I think, because a lot of the times, everything that you do, you're going to make mistakes, and just because they don't make it into the final product doesn't mean you didn't learn from them. And so I could go through every example that's in that picture and tell you what I did wrong, but how I learned from that and how I proceeded forward. So the next step I made after dismantling that old track and after breaking the first vehicle and hurting nobody, which was good, I moved on to the next step of my coaster. And for me, I had this idea that I wanted to be a normal roller coaster. If I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it normally. I'm not going to go crazy on this ride. So it's going to go up a lift hill, come down, and go through the rest of it. But you don't have to be an engineer to see that that curve at the bottom there is a little bit steep and would end up kind of like that for anyone who went on that ride. And so I did what I kept doing throughout this project. Every time I came across a mistake, I would take a step back, look at everything I've done, and try and figure out what my next step forward would be. And in this case, it was taking off that bottom curve, redesigning how I bent the wood, and made a bigger curve. But this process continued. It wasn't just once. Once I take 2 steps forward, it was another step back. So my original design for the ride was to have a turn in it. It was to go up, turn, come back, this nice big loop, everything was going to be perfect. And then one day my dad comes out into the backyard with the lawnmower and hits the ride and goes, "David, I can't get the lawnmower through. That's coming down." And I went, crap. All right, so I once again took a step back, took down the circle so he could get the lawnmower through, and then started processing what I could do next. And thinking to my knowledge of roller coasters, I knew there was one that had it goes backwards and then goes straight and kind of goes back down the same track. And I figured that's probably something I can do. Like, I don't know, come this far, might as well try it. And so I did. And the next step was to build up. But But then I came across my biggest problem, which was I was 3 years into building this thing, about $2,000 in the hole of money that I made from working at Canada's Wonderland. And I had no idea how to build a cart. I had never touched metal, worked with metal. I've seen metal, that was good, that was a good start. But after that, I had no idea what I was gonna do. And one summer after grade 12, my dad comes to me and he goes, I got you a job at Metal Door. It's a manufacturing company I know. They build metal doors. You're going to work on the floor all summer. I went, all right, I guess I'm getting a manual labor job. And so I did. And for 4 months, or I guess it was 2 months because it was grade 12, I sat there at a machine press where I'd put a piece of steel in, press the steel, pull it out, and repeat. But that wasn't my only job. As people got sick or took days off, I got to move around the shop a little bit and see the different opportunities that they had. And the most important one that I learned from this job was how to weld. I wasn't good at it. I don't have my trade. And for every other comment on YouTube on these videos, it says, well, who the hell welded this thing? Are they okay? But I was able to put together a vehicle. And that was one of the biggest successes I had in this ride. It was one thing to build wood and repeat that process. But to come up with an entire vehicle that I had no idea what I was doing was another thing. Finally, for this aspect is take risks. And that's going to be the cheesiest thing you'll hear all night because everyone who's ever come up to speak who wants to tell you how to succeed is going to say take risks. But I'm telling you to take calculated risks. This is an example of something that was not a calculated risk. That's my brother doing the first test run of the ride that I had not even gone on myself because he offered to do it, and I went, yeah, sure, get out there. You can do it. There was no floor on the vehicle. Like, he could have been hurt in every way possible. But he didn't, luckily, thankfully. And that really helped push me forward. But when I say take risks, for me, this whole project was a risk. There was nothing about this that was conventional. There was nothing about this that was sure. And every other person that I told about this said to me, like, why? You can't do that. You're 16. Like, that's not something you know how to do. Just wait till you're older, get your engineering degree, and then you can go do it. But to me, it was a risk that I was willing to take, and in my head, I knew it was a calculated risk. And so the last thing I want to talk about is finding your flow. I was reading a book recently called The Design of Everyday Things by Don Norman, and he mentions this concept of flow, which is when you're doing a task, there's a certain aspect of challenge to it, so how challenging it is and how much skill it takes to get that task done. And if you find a task that has the right amount of skill that you have and is just challenging enough, you end up in a state of flow. And flow is this idea where you're working, but time seems to just pass without you realizing it. That you can go for hours and hours and hours on end with doing something and not even think that you've been doing it. It's just the best sort of feeling. And for me, building rides was my flow. It was also designing rides, being around rides. And from that, I knew from a young age that this is something I've wanted to pursue. So with that, I'd like to say, dream big, take risks, calculated risks. But most of all, find what you love and have fun. Thank you.